Welcome back. We're looking at molecular compounds now, which means a whole new set of rules. The good news is they're simpler rules because there's really not any math involved with these. Molecular compounds have names that just spell out for you how many of each atom are in the compound. You don't have to think about charges. In fact, charges don't work with most of these. So we just turn our brains off and follow what's in the name that we're given. If they say phosphorus trihydride, what this means is a phosphorus and three hydrogens. So our formula is phosphorus, hydride means hydrogen, and tri means three of them. Tricarbon octahydride means 3 carbon, 8 hydrogen, which you write. I guess the only thing that you're really transforming is the order of these is backwards. They say tricarbon, we write carbon, 3 of them. They say octahydride, we write hydrogen, 8 of them. Incidentally, this is propane. That's what we'd normally call it, but it's legal to call it tricarbon octahydride, so we'll stay with that. Disulfur trioxide means 2 sulfur, 3 oxygen. There's disulfur. Here's oxygen, 3 of them, all done. Not too bad. Dinitrogen, not surprisingly, means nitrogen, 2 of them. Tetra means 4, and oxide means oxygen, and 2O4. Quick note while we're here. Sometimes people blip out vowels from these words to make them a little faster to pronounce, and in particular one that people like to do that with. They will take They will take tetraoxide. They will blip out the A and turn it into tetroxide. It's kind of one less syllable. It writes a little faster, it says a little faster. This is called eliding a vowel. We'd say here that we elided the A. Officially, the rule is please don't do this. Occasionally it causes confusion, and that's to be avoided, so just leave all the vowels in there and resist the temptation to trim any of them down. There's one exception to that rule, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'll get to the end of the table, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little more about eliding. But in general, the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry that sets the rules for this has said, please avoid eliding vowels. Every so often it causes a mistake, so let's just not. And some books talk about when it's okay to elide. They might be older books. The new rule is let's try to stay away from that. Finishing this up. Carbon, when we just say carbon, it means a single carbon. Tetra means 4, and chloride is chlorine, of course, so this will be CCl4. Anytime you have a single atom, it is okay to say mono in front of it. So monocarbon tetrachloride would be the exact same as this. Usually we don't bother with the mono prefix, but you will see it from time to time, and there's nothing wrong with putting it in. So that's our English to formula. Hopefully not too many surprises. Now we get to go the other way. So ClF5, this means a single chlorine atom and then 5 fluorine atoms. So for a single chlorine, you simply say chlorine. You could say monochlorine if you wanted. And 5 fluorines becomes penta for the 5 fluoride. Remember, you're changing the ending of just the second element to ide, so fluorine pentafluoride. Did I say that right? Chlorine pentafluoride. Sorry. As2AT4. As is arsenic, and we have 2 of them, so this is diarsenic. Diarsenic. This is astatine, and we have 4 of those, so that 4 is tetra. Tetraastatide. This is a case where you might be tempted to blip out to elide one of those A's and say tetraastatide. Officially, please don't. So diarsenic tetraastatide. SiO2. First element is silicon. If you want to say monosilicon, no problem. That's also correct. And 2 oxygens is dioxide. B is boron. N is nitrogen, but here the ending changes to nitride. So boron nitride. If you want to say monoboron nitride, fine. If you want to say boron mononitride, fine. If you want to go nuts and say monoboron mononitride, also fine. Generally, we don't bother with mono because it just adds letters and it isn't all that necessary. But nothing wrong with it. And if you see other people putting it in, you'll know what it means. This, Te, is a pretty rare element. It is tellurium, and we have 2 of them, so it's not just tellurium, it's ditellurium. Ditellurium. And then we have 5 fluorines. Actually, we've met this before. 5 fluorines is pentafluoride. I repeated myself there. Penta for 5, F-L-U-O-R for fluoride. Not too bad. Okay, so I promised you one more thing about eliding vowels. We almost never do, but there's a compound you've probably heard of, CO, which has this name. What should we call this? This is something that comes out of furnaces or stoves or campfires if we aren't careful with them. And it's poisonous, and its name should be carbon because of the C. And because there's a single O, you could just call this carbon oxide. But if you put a mono on front of it, carbon monoxide is really what we should be calling CO. However, in English, this just looks a little odd. It kind of looks like monoxide, and just through long habit, we've phased out one of these O's and turned it into carbon monoxide. So, yes, we're supposed to avoid eliding vowels, but if anyone says we never ever elide vowels, the answer is, well, sometimes we do. Sometimes we've just picked up, a word has gotten established like this, and we stick with it. The reason we put in this mono, by the way, is that there's another very common gas, carbon dioxide, which we exhale with every breath. It's not air, you can't breathe it, so it's not, I wouldn't call it poisonous, but it is a suffocating gas, and it is nowhere near as harmful as carbon monoxide is. We mention this mono because we're putting a bit of emphasis on the fact that, wait, when you see this name, we are not talking about dioxide, the ordinary one. This is the one that can kill you. And we want to be absolutely sure that people are clear on the difference between this one and this one. So this mono is there to emphasize the difference. If you just heard carbon something oxide, you might assume that they're talking about the less harmful version. This mono is there to make sure that doesn't happen. Relatively safe, awfully dangerous. One of the few times that we use mono because we want to make that clear. So good. That's all there is to say about molecular compound naming. There are no extra things we're going to throw in to make it harder. So learn your prefixes at least up to penta and preferably further. And these should go fine for you.